All right, so here's one of the moments that Republicans are saying, "Gotya," to Joe Biden about from the debate last night. Let's take a look.
But they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it. And I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. Okay. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All right.
And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turning the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions, the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
Oh, I see.
Here's the deal. But
that's
you can't
a big
do
statement.
That. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind.
We
and
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because basically what he's saying is he is going to destroy the oil industry. Okay. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond,
Ohio.
and then I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context, but the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
Yet again, I was actually very impressed with Biden in that back and forth. They think it's a Gotya. The Republicans think it's a Gotya when he's asked, well, what about the oil industry? Are you going to destroy the oil industry? And he was like, I would transition from the oil industry, yes. And Trump thought it was like a, aha! He's like, that's a big statement. That's a big statement, Joe. And Biden's like, that is a big statement. You're right. And I'm correct. This is what people need to understand. They're paper tigers, dog. They they live in this world of Sean Hannity sound bites that really are not mildly convincing under the slightest bit of scrutiny. So he really thought, like, Gotya. You said that eventually we have to get off oil. Yeah. Could you imagine these conservatives back in the day when our main form of communication was the Morse code? My opponent thinks we're going to get off of Morse code. Idiot. My opponent wants to end the horse and buggy industry as we know it. Irresponsible. Like, you guys are ridiculous. Obviously, we can't live off fossil fuels forever. How dumb do you have to be to think this never ends? Like, what? It's insane, and they casually believe it. Like, well, duh. The way we do things now is the way we have to do them forever in every single way. What happened? I thought you were like the big time, we like innovation guys. Turns out you don't. Okay, so he says, I would transition from the oil industry, yes. Trump says, that's a big statement. He's like, yeah, that is a big statement, and I'm correct. And then he points out, listen, we gotta, let's stop subsidizing the oil industry. Again, what happened? The conservatives who are supposed to believe in small government love just throwing taxpayer money at ExxonMobil. He's like, all right, we gotta stop the oil subsidies. Duh. We don't subsidize solar and wind, or to the extent we do, it's not nearly equal to how much we subsidize the oil industry, because oil pays their bribes hell of a lot more than the renewable energy, people do. So he did well. He did well. He's like, yeah, we have to transition. And now, listen, the criticism of him from the left is his timeline is too shitty. Biden basically says, like, yeah, we got to get the ball rolling now, and then by 2050, we'll be off of oil. And, people on the left are rightly pointing out, we don't have that much time. We don't. Climate change is so disastrous, like, we have to make that transition a lot quicker. But, Biden says he thinks, it's more realistic to say by this date, so let's do it by this date. Either way, I love it when a Republican politician accuses somebody of something, but the accusation is like, you're so in your own bubble and dating yourself. And the response is like, I'm right. What are you talking about? Because oftentimes you see Democrats sort of run away from their own shadow. And this was a rare instance of Biden not doing that. And like I said, even though he's a corporate Democrat, he has some of the old school labor Democrat instincts. And so he does have that healthy streak of like, shut the fuck up in him, which is a good quality to have. I mean, honestly, if you want to be an effective communicator, that's one of the qualities that makes you a better communicator. If you have that thing where you're just like, your instinct is like, I'm going to double down. That works a lot. And Biden kind of has that here. And Trump thought it was a Gotya, and it just wasn't.